Well, to help make sense of this tariff war, Taimur Baig, Chief Economist, Managing Director, DBS Group Research, joins us now. Taimur, good to have you on the show. Now, there's clearly not going to be any winners in this global trade war that Trump has unleashed. Consensus is it's likely to tip the U.S. into an inflationary spiral, then possibly a recession. I'm more interested in what the knock-on effect will be on Asian economies, especially export-reliant Asian economies.
Roland, great to be on your show. Firstly, let's not assume that today is the end of the trade war measures from the U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was very clear that this is it only for those who are deemed not to retaliate. If countries retaliate, there'll be more. And by retaliation, I don't necessarily mean offsetting tariffs. If a country's exchange rate were to depreciate against the U.S. dollar, they would see that as a retaliation. If the country were to come up with some measures to support their domestic sector that will suffer from the tariff, that will be seen as retaliation. So, you use that denominator of 2 to divide the imputed tariff, which was the discounted tariff announced by the White House this morning. Well, they can go up to all the way there. You don't have to divide it by 2. You can divide by 1. So that's the starting point, that for the region, there's tremendous amount of uncertainty. It's not like we got some clarity today. There is, mixed messages coming from the U.S. in terms of where the tariffs go. Will there be any room for negotiation and withdrawal of tariff? I fear not. But I think if indeed all of those expectations were to set in, the tariffs will not go down. They might as well be possibilities they could go up under circumstances. I fear that the reaction that we've seen from the market so far would actually be the first step. There's more downtrend to happen. In terms of thinking through the implications for the region, clearly the likes of Cambodia, Vietnam are the hardest hit. They have huge exposure to the U.S. in terms of their total exports going to the U.S. And their market share. And also the reciprocal tariffs on them is the most severe. But when you look at countries like Japan, Korea, they have been pursuing free trade, open market access with the U.S. for decades. For them to get hit with any tariff is a shocking development. And then there is, of course, China, where you add the Biden-era tariffs, the 20% already announced, and the 34% today. We're talking about tariffs in the range of almost 60% for certain Chinese products, might even go higher. So this is a shock unlike anything we have seen on the trade front ever since this region decided to embrace trade as an engine of growth. This is a big negative development without any question.
Taimur, China and Vietnam, some of the hardest hit by the latest round of tariffs. Now, apart from disrupting global supply chains, is it also likely to deter, future foreign direct investments into these respective countries?
I don't think so. These countries offer some things that transcend the issue with respect to exposure to the U.S. U.S. is a big, consequential market, but the rest of the world still make up 70% of global GDP. China's ability to deliver top-notch technology, top-notch manufacturing at a reasonable price will remain a value proposition which the rest of the world cannot refuse. And hence, the countries that want to take advantage of China's manufacturing supply chain, want to do trade with China and the rest of the world, minus the U.S., they will continue to put FDI in China. Same holds for Vietnam. I think Vietnam sort of gets the short end of the stick when we just keep on talking about it is a China plus one beneficiary. There are many companies in Vietnam which did not move their supply chain from China to Vietnam. They went there because they want to tap into Vietnam's excellence in manufacturing, as well as tap into the access they get in the rest of the region. That will continue unabated. And beyond the likes of Vietnam and China, when you look at closer to shore, the likes of Malaysia or Singapore, we are going through a proverbial golden age of investment right now. I don't think that trend is going to be diminished by what is happening out of the U.S.
So which countries, in your mind, Asian countries, are going to come out of this better than others, less unscathed?
If we just go by the tariff that have been imposed, the likes of Singapore, Australia, New Zealand are basically, they're getting 10% by default. They should not be getting anything at all because they actually run deficits vis-a-vis the U.S., not a surplus. So from an investor perspective, these countries remain aligned in multiple dimensions with the U.S. and therefore would not be in the receiving end of any capricious move. And I also think Malaysia, although Malaysia has gotten some tariff imposed today, I think that there will be companies which want to arbitrage between tariffs from China into Malaysia, from Vietnam into Malaysia, it will make sense. Malaysia sort of stands in the unique position where it is capable of absorbing both low-cost and high-cost manufacturing. It has wages that are competitive at both ends, know-how, manpower supply that are attractive, and hence Vietnam plus one, China plus one could readily manifest in a country like Malaysia. But Roland, I will hasten to restate the earlier point. Don't think that the same dynamic that we saw in the past of the likes of Vietnam and Mexico benefiting from China plus one can be readily replicated. Because if we were to see massive amount of investments and exports reorienting toward Malaysia, the U.S. Department of Commerce will notice, Trump will notice, and they will be again on the forefront of that a year from now.
Taimur, very quickly before I let you go, I'm curious. Trump levied 10% tariffs on 2 uninhabited islands in Australia, Heard and McDonald Islands, as far as I know, populated by only penguins, and then another 27% tariffs on a largely uninhabited island, also in Australia, Norfolk Island. What gives?
To quote from The Wizard of Oz, we're not in Kansas anymore. Again, what happened today is so broad-based that even uninhabited islands are getting in the radar of the U.S., sort of tells you how indiscriminate this trade war is. It is a lose-lose for the whole world, America included. Nobody will benefit from it. Few protected industries here and there. There'll be a relative gradation with the Singapore benefits or loses less than Vietnam or Vietnam loses less than somebody else. But by and large, this is an unambiguously negative development, as underscored by uninhabited islands also facing tariffs.
Not in Kansas anymore, Taimur Baig. Thank you for those insights. He is Chief Economist, Managing Director at DBS Group Research.